responsibility for the billions of dollars of taxpayer fraud that has occurred on his watch, and according to so many whistleblowers, with his protection, as they have alleged threats and intimidation coming from his office if they didn't keep their mouths shut about it. As expected, he did not acknowledge any sort of responsibility at all, be it purposeful or just negligence, but instead noting that he had to resign because of the distractions caused, not allowing him to fully focus on a campaign, or on the flip side, campaigning would not allow him to really make sure that all these troubles are taken care of, and he capped it off with suggesting he was going to continue to, stand up against Donald Trump. It's all Trump's fault, of course. And he did not answer any questions. Reporters audibly were a bit annoyed by this. You could hear them right after the presser talking to one another in an open mic, saying to his staff, "You told us he would answer questions. Why did he not answer questions?" Now, he did say he was going to be holding a press conference today in which he would answer questions. The press conference is about some new government program handout, which I'm sure will also be filled with fraud. And I suspect that he will not answer questions about his resignation, but instead at this press conference, just note anytime those questions come up, I'm here to talk about this new family leave program. But he may address the resignation itself. I to some degree hope that he does. I think it's a lose-lose for him. If he doesn't address it, that isn't good for him. If he does address it, he'll probably say something that is not going to work in his favor, because I was going to say kind of an idiot, but I don't know if kind of is. He's just an idiot, and yeah, that's right.
He's a
Yeah.
knucklehead.
He's a knucklehead. Golly gee, I just really wish he'd stick with that play. Whenever the knucklehead remark, if you're not familiar with it, that was the excuse he used during the debates when he was confronted with numerous lies that he told, and I think we forget about all the lies during the campaign. He falsely claimed that he had never been arrested for a DUI, claimed he was at Tiananmen Square during the massacre, which he wasn't. He claimed that his daughter was conceived through fertilization treatment. That turned out not to be true. I mean, there were a number of things, some of which, like, why would you even lie about that? I mean, what is the point? And he finally just started saying, "Oh, I'm just a knucklehead. That's what I do. I just lie about things." And so, yeah, that should just be the knucklehead defense. Everything, I'm just a knucklehead, kind of knock on his head and act all goofy and hand out tampons to people, like at a parade. Toss them out to the audience. And come on, everyone, this is what knuckleheads do. This is a guy that could very well be the vice president of the United States today. In the best judgment of the Democrat Party, in the best judgment of Kamala Harris, this was the guy that should have been a heartbeat away from the presidency.
Isn't that scary?
I mean, it really, there's been this long-standing joke about how Democrats deliberately pick a vice president that is so clearly below them in terms of capabilities that it's actually protection against assassination. This was joked about with Obama, and in fact, in that belief, that's the reason that Bin Laden, when he hatched an assassination plot to kill Obama, directed Obama, and there were a number of other people within his administration, to not touch Biden, because he believed that Biden would be so bad as president of the United States, he would do more destruction to the United States as president than Bin Laden himself was able to do with 9/11. And so, across the spectrum, that belief existed that Biden was so bad that, of course, Obama didn't think about the enemy component, but he thought, nobody's going to kill me because Biden's so bad. They wouldn't, if they hated me and thought I was bad for the country. They're not gonna kill me because then Biden is in the wings. Well, then Biden picks Kamala Harris, and everyone's like, well, the pattern continues. Who knew Biden could find someone that was even, by all appearances, more incompetent than him? And if you are a supporter of either of those two, and you think that I'm just trying to illustrate some sort of point here without any evidence, it was the media and numerous elected Democrats themselves in the run-up to his reelection that argued he should drop her from the ticket because she was so bad. Openly. And then, of course, they overturn the Democrats' vote and hand her the nomination. And so what does she manage to do? She finds somebody that arguably is even more incompetent than she is. Can you imagine if Tim Walz ended up running for president, what sort of vice president he would pick? You think there's no way he could find someone more incompetent, but did you think Kamala Harris potentially could? I mean, I don't know. I don't know. There are a lot of Democrats out there. People are already joking that anyone, whether it is Gavin Newsom or Kamala Harris is still positioning herself to run for re-election, that Maduro is the vice presidential ticket pick that they're all going to vie for because of this instinct by Democrat grassroots activists to gravitate towards dictators and criminals and people who aren't even American citizens. I mean, it is just by default go to defend and celebrate and endorse. And so that is, the running cultural joke that's been earned by the Democrats at this point that Maduro, I mean, hell, he could run for president on the Democrat ticket, probably get the nomination. There's an Amy Klobuchar component to the whole Tim Walz dropping out of the race. Although Trump has suggested Tim Walz may end up actually resigning from the governorship before his term actually runs out. Now, that could be Trump just being Trump, or that could be there is something on the horizon and the Department of Justice is looking at potential illegalities. Now, incompetency is not a crime. If you're a Democrat, it's a resume enhancer. But if there was suspicion or evidence of any sort of quid pro quo situation or illegal fundraising money that because let's not forget, the Treasury Department had announced, Bassett had announced that the Treasury Department was going to be investigating where these dollars were going. So that meant they were going to be looking into bank accounts. And it's not inconceivable to believe that there was a cycle of dollars that was being directed to a number of these corrupt individuals and money being siphoned off to terrorist organizations, money then in turn going back to Tim Walz's re-election campaign or maybe even to his own private bank accounts. We're not sure exactly what it is that they may be discovering. So time will tell. Perhaps it won't. But the Amy Klobuchar, if you don't, where you may recognize her name, she ran a relatively disastrous campaign for the presidency as a Democrat, not as bad as Kamala Harris, but probably second place behind her. And it is already said that she is going to be running for the governorship with the theory, the belief that she would then appoint Tim Walz her position, open position in the U.S. Senate. That all of this is a behind-the-scenes shuffling of corruption. What details there are on that coming up, we'll share with you. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks' first meteorologist, Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 65. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 36. For your Wednesday, mostly sunny with a high near 65. And taking a look at Thursday, we'll see a 90% chance of showers and a high near 64.
Was it hot in here, or am I
No,
just
it's hot in
okay?
here.
I was literally beginning, not like dripping sweat, and I thought maybe I'm just sick.
No, it is pretty warm
Okay,
in here.
but
And that's how you know it's warm
yeah,
in
if
here.
you're warm in
Yeah.
here, okay,
I'll
good.
go
Just
open the
wanted
door in
to
a second.
just thought
Turn
I
the
would
fan
check.
on.
I didn't want to have malaria or something and not even know it.
Well,
That would
I'm
that
glad you don't.
if I started to feel ill, that would be my go-to. Just assume it's malaria,
Malaria.
because that makes sense, of course. Senator Amy Klobuchar, Democrat, Minnesota, reportedly considering a run for governor after Tim Walz made his announcement that he was ending his reelection campaign. They'd probably elect her because they have a tendency to elect morons, and Amy Klobuchar is also a moron, much like Tim Walz. And this was a story from the New York Times originating that this was something she was considering. According to Town Halls at Dustin Grage, the same source who helped predict that Walz would become former Vice President Kamala Harris's running mate, said that, quote, the plan is to clear the way for Amy Klobuchar so that she can appoint him to the U.S. Senate. Klobuchar, who is not up for re-election until 2030, can still remain in the Senate if she loses a bid for governor. Now, once upon a time when a candidate, well, specifically running for the presidency, if they held a position as a member of Congress or a senator, they would resign that position to run, and then they kind of quit doing that. That way, if I lose, no big deal. I can still keep my taxpayer-funded job. And so the assumption here, of course, is that Amy Klobuchar would not resign unless she won. Make sure that it was a sure thing. And so if she were to win the gubernatorial race, which, like I said, I think it's quite possible, then she would in turn, according to the whispers out there, appoint Waltz to her position in the U.S. Senate. Now, I'm always interested in, okay, does this make sense? Because people can say anything. And oftentimes people will come up with these clever ideas about, well, I bet this and this, but I'm always looking to, okay, well, why would they do that? Does that make sense? When you understand where they are coming from, is that something that somebody like that would do? What would drive them to do it? Now, on the surface, one could look at this and say, well, what would be the point in that? The whole reason Tim Waltz is resigning is an attempt, or dropping out of the race at this point, is part of an attempt by Democrats to get the Somalia stuff out of the news. So that number one, just the hopes that this will result in the media that they quit covering this. You know, he was the guy, quote, in charge of the state while this was going on. He's gone, so there's nothing left to see here. But if even there is continued coverage of it, or during campaigns this issue comes up, the Democrats can portray it as old news. You know, hey, Tim Waltz, he didn't run for re-election. There's new people in charge. This is taken care of. There's nothing, we need to look forward, not backwards. Understanding that, why then would Tim Waltz get appointed to that position? Why bring him back into the fray? Well, one, if that were to happen, it would be after the midterm elections were over. Amy Klobuchar would not, of course, be making that appointment, because this is the way that it works, if she got elected, she resigns, her seat becomes open, and the governor of Minnesota is the one that appoints the open seat until the next election. And so that would not occur until after the midterm elections anyhow. Amy Klobuchar, of course, could be asked, and I'm sure that she would be asked that question. Would they really hound her about it? Like, if you do win, would you appoint? Would you be open to appointing? Have you talked to anyone about appointing Tim Waltz to your position? I imagine there's going to be one of two answers. One is no, I won't, which could be an honest answer. It could also be a lie. Because after all, so what if she does? Once she gets elected, puts him in there, so what? Nobody can do anything about it at that point. Or she could give the answer, I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking about what's best for the people of Minnesota and getting out there and listening to the people of Minnesota and becoming the best governor Minnesota can have. And I'm not thinking about appointments, and just to dismiss it. Leaving the door open. Still, though, however, why? Why do that? What is the upside of appointing Tim Waltz to the U.S. Senate? What do you get out of that? Best I can assess, if all of this were actually true, and there is a plan underway that, one, It may have been something that Tim Walz said. There's two reasons this could happen. One, Tim Walz said, I'm not getting out of this thing. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to be an albatross around your neck for this entire camp. I'm going to run. Use that as leverage. Recognizing, I don't know that he's this smart. Maybe his wife is. Maybe he's got some confidant that is this smart that could use that as leverage. That could recognize I'm not going to win re-election. If anything, donors are going to stop donating to me, so I can't win re-election as governor. But I got to have some gig. And work out a deal, tell Amy Klobuchar that I'll drop out, or tell the Democrats I'll drop out. But the deal is this. Klobuchar wins and gives me that Senate seat. If I don't get that, then I'm staying in this thing. And this as an issue is not going to go away during the midterms. Now, there's one other possible explanation, but I know it sounds like I'm just trying to tease this thing, but I do have to get a break here real quick, before hit on the other reason that could be a motivating factor if all of that is true. A plan, as has been suggested, Klobuchar run for governor, and then after she wins, if she does, resigns her seat and then appoints Tim Walz to it. All right, got to get a quick traffic update, look at weather, and then just cap off the discussion about this. I guess you could call it a conspiracy theory that the Tim Walz announcement that he's dropping out of his race for re-election, governor of Minnesota, is part of a plan in which Amy Klobuchar then decides to run if she wins, gives up her U.S. Senate seat, and then gives it to him. That next.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 65. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 36. For your Wednesday, mostly sunny with a high near 65. And taking a look at Thursday, we'll see a 90% chance of showers with a high near 64.
Someone had texted in on the Pyramid Roofing Company talking text line. I thought Fetterman was an absolute nutcase, but he turned out pretty common sense sort of fellow. Just think how great Tim Waltz could turn out. Yeah. I'd have to have a massive stroke, I guess. That would be the key to it. Let's see. Why isn't Klobuchar just as guilty as Waltz with the scandal in Minnesota? Well, now, listen. She could, I mean, there could be a level of corruption there. The reason that it is falling on Tim Walz is he's the executive of the state. Like he is in charge of the state. Amy Klobuchar is a, quote, as a senator, represents the state while in Washington, D.C. on a federal level. So she's not running the state. She is representing the state in Washington, D.C. as a senator. Now, that isn't to say that she doesn't have relationships to some corrupt degree with the corrupt people in the Somali community. In fact, there is a video circulating of her fighting through a snowstorm to get to some Somali event, to go on and on about. I mean, it just is, you really see the level of pandering with these people. And in addition to that, for some time now, and this is something that the media has ignored, local media ignoring it as well, employees within the state of Minnesota had told, they've produced the emails and the communications, Tim Waltz, his office, that there was massive corruption going on. A lot of these people were the people actually in charge of making sure that these dollars were utilized. It's their job in government. Okay, your job is childcare, and so they're like, this money is going to people who should not be getting this money, and Tim Waltz's response was, keep your damn mouth shut. So that engagement, according to numerous government employees, is something that it really has him on the hook for this. New York Times reporting Amy Klobuchar is going to run. If she gets elected, she'll resign her Senate seat. There are reports that she would then in turn appoint Tim Waltz to her Senate position. So what would be the purpose of that? Well, I see two options. One, I explained earlier, and that is Tim Waltz. He knows he can't win re-election. Donors have said, we're not going to support you. But he needs to keep on the taxpayer gravy train and has told the Democrats, I'm going to be an albatross around here now. I'm not stepping out of this thing. I know I'll lose. But I don't care. You'll all go down with me because I'm what they're going to be talking about. This Somali scandal is what's going to be talked about. It's going to be talking about corruption within the Democrat Party while all of you are running for re-election in the midterms. Unless I get something out of it. You got to get me something. I need a job. And Amy Klobuchar is thinking about running for governor. I'd like that Senate seat. So that could be one reason. Another could be the recognition that the level of corruption, the depth and breadth of corruption is clearly not something that only the corrupt Somalis who were receiving the money and Tim Waltz knew about. Obviously, unless you believe that Tim Waltz is some sort of brilliant Elon Musk level, intellectually mastermind, Tim Waltz probably wasn't the only person in power in elected office in the Democrat Party that has their fingers in this thing. And he won't mind naming names. He could be, he strikes me as the sort of guy that would easily say, I'll take everyone down with me. I'll point fingers at people who have never even met a Somali. And so it's threatening, extortion. I mean, you think there have been numerous cases. There's a component to this that's not getting a lot of coverage. There have been a number of instances in which judges in Minnesota have made what have been considered atrocious decisions regarding corruption cases against people in the Somali community. We talked about one of them, and interestingly enough, it was a story that broke prior to all of this stuff becoming public. And interestingly, Keith Ellison, who is the Attorney General in Minnesota, and he's a Democrat, left-wing Democrat, had been the one pushing one of these cases in particular. And it was a Somali couple, and they were running the same sort of scam, claimed that they had some business and that, they're getting all these tax dollars, and it was fraud, and they ended up being found guilty. And it was, according to the jurors, it took like an hour of deliberations. They said it was so clear-cut. Judge overturned it. Just flat out overturned. The judge that presided, not an appeal. The judge that presided over the case after they were found guilty just overturned the verdict and said, no, I just don't think that I agree with this verdict. Claimed that the jury didn't take into consideration other possibilities, that they could have been innocent. You see that sort of stuff happening? Where it's just brazen? I mean, it is not completely unprecedented, but it is exceedingly rare for a judge to overturn a verdict. But, generally it is for reasons that are very clear and obvious. But this is one in which everyone was gobsmacked. It was at local TV. They did interview jurors, and they just were shocked. Well, why did that happen? When you hear the term tip of the iceberg, as has been utilized to describe the level of corruption regarding this stuff in Minnesota, I think that people infer that means the amount of money that was stolen. I don't think that's what tip of the iceberg means. I think it means the amount of people that are involved, the levels of government that were involved. And by the behavior of a number of these judges, and that one specifically, I forget her name. So we went through the story at the time it was happening. You begin to see that sort of thing. And all of a sudden, things start to come into focus. And if you're Tim Waltz and you're fully aware of that level of corruption, if there is a level of corruption in which you have judges being paid off, if you have other elected officials, and you have all that info, yeah, you could ask for a U.S. Senate seat. Now, this may be where Tim Waltz isn't so sharp. And that is the realistic possibility that he could be Epsteined. Sometimes it's amazing to me people within such deep and dark corruption fail to recognize that they could become the victim of it themselves. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. A number of you have asked the question, what did Kamala Harris do? How did she not find this while vetting? According to a number of the whistleblowers, she knew because they told her. This is an avenue. It's amazing what sources of information the media has no interest in highlighting. And that is all of these government employees. Because, see, the media right now, I mean, there is a level of protection that is still being provided by Tim Walz by leaving a focus off certain things. The way the media is covering it right now is through the lens of potential incompetence. But they know. They know that there are government employees out there who have been saying, we were threatened by his office to keep our mouths shut. He knew about this. That's not incompetence. That's corruption. That's a whole nother level. And I found this story, in fact. This is from Econo Times, article Saturday, August 10th, 2024. And this is Kamala Harris's VP pick. Tim Walz faces backlash over $250 million COVID relief scam involving Somali fraudsters. This was during the campaign. Minnesota Governor Tim. Have you ever even heard of Econo Times? Minnesota Governor Tim Walz facing intense scrutiny after allegations surfaced that his administration allowed a group of politically connected Somali individuals to embezzle $250 million in COVID-19 relief funds. And the article goes on. Now, the point being here, this was known. Kamala Harris knew it. The media knew it. Here's some media outlet that's not mainstream back in August of 2024 during the campaign writing about it. Now, this is specifically a COVID-19 scam allegation, not the child care centers or the Feed the Kid scam or the Somali autistic children scam or any of these others that have been revealed. But point being is, what do all those things have in common? Tim Walz and the Somali community. See, that's the thing about this. And it's difficult. I mean, we know the corruption is there. But sometimes it's hard for us to accept the reality that so many people know about it. And it's like, what makes something catch? Like, what made this catch? You know, the thing is, there are already people in prison for this scam. The feds indicted them. Like I said, Keith Ellison, the attorney general, now it wasn't widespread. It was some Somali couple that is attorney general, a Democrat, he prosecuted. And so what you've had over the last couple of years, at least, the recognition that a degree of fraud is going on because certain people in the Somali community have been prosecuted for it. Now, Tim Walz likes to today pretend as if he was responsible for those prosecutions. He had nothing whatsoever to do with them. Outside of Keith Ellison, they've been on the Fed level. So it's such an unusual thing. Like, what makes something go, for lack of a better term, I guess, viral in a political sense? What made it go from everyone knew it was going on? Like, you and I didn't. Get a story here, a story there about some Somalis. Most of them probably local in Minnesota. The local media there, though, they hear things. They talk to people. what we know today, I mean, look, how is it that what really leveled it up? You had one young guy, an independent journalist, Nick Shirley, I think Shirley's his last name, just got online, looked up, based off of government information, where it was all these dollars were going and started going to him. Oh, this one here got $10 million last year. This one got $30 million last year. This one got, and lo and behold, nothing in any of these facilities. Maybe a person who refused to answer questions. You don't have tens, hundreds of millions going to different organizations or facilities, specifically daycare centers that don't actually exist and no one know about it. Do you know what politicians love to do? They love, in their local districts, local communities, to go to places with kids to show what they have done. Look at what I've done. Look at all of these kids that otherwise would not have care and education if it weren't for me bringing those dollars. You're telling me that not a single Democrat politician in particular ever had any interest in doing a photo op at any of these places? No one? It's BS. There is no way that the media, that Democrat that none of them had any idea that these facilities, and so the point is here, that is the level of corruption in Minnesota that it's, I mean, it's amazing. This is exactly what Somalia's like. Somalia. Corruption is such a part of the culture. Everyone knows it. And it's just like, this is just the way it is. So it's not even talked about. And the few people who do get threatened. And the irony is, so many people fled Somalia to get away from that sort of corruption, and then you get some of the corrupt people from Somalia decide, you know what, this may be a lucrative deal in the United States of America, and then they find a place like Minnesota with a governor like Tim Walz, set up shop there. And it clearly is much more lucrative. And the idea that Tim Walz somehow is the only one, like he's some sort of mastermind, that idiot. No intelligent thinking person can possibly believe. I mean, none of it. Again, you just think of the logistics of it and the fact that it is truly impossible. I think this is potentially the leverage Tim Walz has. Now, he may be too dumb to know how to use it, and he may be too afraid to use it. He knows what this party does to its own. He knows we're talking about really bad people here. I'm not saying his life's on the line. But if it popped up Epstein or it wouldn't surprise me at all. So that, so the leverage he probably has over all of this is all the corrupt people, the other people that are involved, everyone who knows what's going on. The leverage they have over him is the knowledge he has that he could be killed or his family. Yeah, we'll just blame it on Trump. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you, Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. If one of your New Year's resolutions is to get ahead of expenses, taking care of your heating system, that should be top of the list. I think winter will be here soon. Who knows? But a simple check now can help prevent breakdowns and it can actually improve efficiency. And that is why I want to recommend Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. They work on multiple heating systems and they serve both residential and commercial customers. And they're just known for doing the job right the first time. And if something does pop up after those normal business hours, they have a 24/7 emergency service line as well. Foreman, they are who I use for all of my HVAC needs, and I recommend that you check out their reviews because one thing that you will see over and over again is just how awesome they are to work with. If it's time to have the Foreman team out to your home, reach out to Russell today. You can find all of the contact information for Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
Look at this headline. Oh, you know what today is?
What?
January 6th.
Oh, how could we forget?
Well, I did forget until I saw what they're talking about right now. CNN, House Dems hold hearing to set the record straight on January 6th. Just to remind you all.
How could we forget?
Yep. Just to remind you that 87 police officers were murdered in the Capitol that day. Or who knows what number they will come up with. I suspect there will be absolutely no discussion about Ashley Babbitt.
Yeah, I was going to say, Ashley Babbitt who?
Yeah, the one person that was executed inside the Capitol, completely unarmed and not in any way, shape, or form a danger to that Capitol Hill police officer who was awarded for assassinating a Trump supporter. Probably won't be much discussion on CNN about that. Regarding corruption in Minnesota, I have a sick thought. What if the government really has no idea where all that money goes? What if all they care about are the optics of spending money for causes that get them political capital, and that explains how we are trillions of dollars in debt because there's no financial responsibility in government spending or accountability or follow-up. The government just dumps our great-grandchildren's tax dollars down the drain with no thought or care. Well, that is a huge part of it. It is. It is optics. Now, some of it is support, political support, which plays into the optics. And some of it, I firmly believe, is that money in turn goes right back to them. In fact, we know that. We talked about, I think it was yesterday, about the tens of thousands of dollars from many of these different Somali organizations and people who get the money that turn around and write checks to these Democrats' reelection campaigns. So it's all about maintaining power. Combination of money, combination of optics. It's all corruption. News coming up in 60 seconds. Springfield's Talk 1041. Streaming live, KSGF.com, also on YouTube. If you look up Springfield's Talk 1041, you can find us there. Into the new year, and people do the resolution thing, and one of the reasons that so many people fail is because it takes, consistency and dedication. But not everything that is a much-needed improvement to your overall life takes constant dedication. Ozarks elder law can level you up from potential heartache, financial turmoil, family fights, to being secure in a way that helps prevent many of that from occurring. People, we just don't like to plan for when we die, oftentimes because we think I don't have to worry about it. I'm young, I'm healthy. Young, healthy people die all the time. That's just the way it is. And if you're 18 years old, you are a legal adult. And if you have not, at the age of 18, made plans, so you may think to yourself, well, I'm 18 years old. I don't own anything. Your 18th birthday, you get out there and you're in a car accident, you're incapacitated. You can't make medical decisions for yourself. Mom and dad no longer your legal guardian to do it for you. No one is. Guess who ultimately gets to make the decisions? Government. So whether it is you're 18 years old and you want to protect yourself in that capacity, or you are rounding the bend and you know that my time may be somewhat limited and I don't want my family fighting over family photos and who gets the antique car and who gets this and that and so forth, and everything else in between, things you may not have even thought of, Ozarks Elder Law, reach out to them. And here's the great thing. You get a consultation. It's a courtesy. They're not going to charge you to find out what it is you need to do. Then they can say, all right, here's what you need to do. Here's what it'll cost. And here's what we need to do it. Bam, you get it done, taken care of. And then it's New Year's resolution done, over with. You've improved your position in life, and it's already done. You don't have to stick with it. It's a great deal. Ozarks Elder Law. Find them under Nick's endorsements at KSGF.com. There's a story in the Daily Caller about the 96% of victims losing their homes in those fires out in California, specifically the Pacific Palisades. 96% have not even begun, they have been blocked from being able to even start the process of building their home. Only 4%, actually less than 4%, of victims have been able to start rebuilding. Just start. Now, Gavin Newsom, this whole thing. You recall Trump trying to get out there and saying, listen, you got to cut this red tape out, talking about maybe FEMA coming in and no, we'll cut the red tape. You get out of here. Oh, we're going to get rid of all that red tape. You're going to see homes built like you've never seen them built before. Less than 4% have even been able to start. Nearly a year later. Fires broke out January 7th. We're on the year anniversary. Can you imagine? I think about this as I hear the stories about the Democrat Party and the Gavin Newsoms of the world and the amount of time and effort and focus they put on people who are in this country illegally. The amount of money they funnel to Somalis. The hand over fist dollars that they put into projects out in California, that the high-speed rail that God even only knows how many trillions or whatever of dollars. It's just failure after. They cannot spend money fast enough. They cannot focus on groups like Queers for Palestine or individuals that, they spend all this time and effort and their clout defending people who attack ICE physically. Meanwhile, you have lifelong residents homeowners that pay insane amount of property taxes just for the privilege of owning a home in California. Many of their homes burnt to the ground when they didn't need to because of the incompetence of the very government that today is blocking them from even starting to build their homes. And the governor of that state is what the Democrats see as potentially the pathway to the White House. It is beyond me. This isn't an endorsement of you should vote or support Republicans or Libertarian or any other party. It is beyond me how any thinking, caring person can even conceive of voting for the Democrat Party. If you are a law-abiding, working, self-sufficient citizen in this country, you are the absolute bottom of the barrel to the Democrat Party. Bottom of the barrel. They prove it through their actions every day. Every day. Oh, we'll see press conferences. Democrats outraged that, Trump arrested a dictator, narco-terrorist. Oh, press conferences, Democrats outraged that Trump sends in the National Guard. They'll hold press conferences going to court to try and prevent Trump from sending in the National Guard to protect citizens in their cities. They'll hold press conferences defending those in the Somali community who are responsible for stealing millions and millions of dollars from taxpayers. They will stand up and defend people who are in this country illegally. Hold those press conferences. When do they hold press conferences for the people who lost their homes to fires? And I know there's an argument, hey, these people get what they deserve. This is what they vote for. It is astounding how self-destructive people can be when they get into the hive mentality and can be treated so brazenly and immorally disrespectful, and then ask when they can write the next check to their reelection campaign for doing it. It's remarkable to look at the prioritization of the Democrat Party. We got weather coming up in a moment. We'll get you updated on the Maduro news and yesterday in court. I wanted to play some additional audio as well. Not a tremendous amount, but it's some very significant things that have developed. And we really, some of these people who know and have lived under dictatorships talk more and more. What we're learning is that these people on the left in this country who run around calling Trump a dictator, I mean, we know it, but talk about demonstrating they have no concept of what a dictatorship is. Zero concept, and should be ashamed of themselves. While I've argued this in the past, these people who frankly are trash, selfish, self-righteous, spoiled narcissists that run around complaining that Donald Trump is a dictator, and like you ought to go live in a dictatorship. Are you out of your mind? And increasingly, many people who have fled Venezuela are starting to vocalize that to these Democrats. Because they are watching the Democrats, many of them activists, come out and defend the dictator that caused them to flee. Let's get a news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 65. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 36. For your Wednesday, mostly sunny with a high near 65. And taking a look at Thursday, we'll see a 90% chance of showers with a high near 64.
Maduro appeared in court yesterday along with his wife, Celia. And, he was told, quit talking. He's like, I'm still president of Venezuela. I'm a prisoner of war. But you can't have it both ways. You can't, on one hand, declare that what Trump did was illegal and wrong because Congress did not declare war, yet he or you are a prisoner of war. We're one or the other. We're at war or we aren't at war. I mean, you even hear a number of Democrats trying to claim that Trump has gotten us into war in Venezuela, but then they will argue he did not have the authority to do what he did because we didn't declare war. Which is it? Are we at war or aren't we at war? So you got Maduro in court yesterday, and apparently, as the indictment was read, and he was, told his rights, he was a little surprised that he had any. Apparently, according to some of the reports, the right to remain silent, and if you can't afford an attorney, you'll be appointed one, and all of these were things apparently that he was like, oh, huh? Now I don't know to what degree this is accurate, whether this is just a translation issue. I'm not sure, but I will acknowledge it's. You think to yourself, well, clearly he must know these things. Not necessarily. When Boris Yeltsin came to visit the United States back in, I forgot what year it was, but there was a year, it was Soviet Union era, and he went to a grocery store somewhere here in the United States. He was visiting. And he was just amazed. He was shocked at all of the different types of everything that existed. And I believe he remarked, like, how do they know that people will want these things? How, he couldn't figure that out. Well, it's capitalism, free market system. That's how that works. And that always struck me because I guess in my mind, I assumed that they knew what the United States was like. Just because they railed against it, hated the form of government. They clearly knew, but that was a demonstration. And here you had somebody that was in a position of world leader and literally was expressing amazement at all of the things on a grocery store shelf in the United States. I've always remembered that, like not to assume what other people know and don't know. Maduro may really, truly, he may have thought that he's going to be beaten and essentially treated the way that he treats political prisoners, believing that he's won, that he was going to suffer the same fate. At the same time, there were it became dueling protesters. And you may have seen these, and a lot of this is backed by Chinese dollars. The Democrat activists have fully saddled up, both financially and in terms of messaging with the communist Chinese and Putin's Russia on the issue of Maduro. And you had Democrat activists, mostly white, protesting outside of the courthouse in support of Maduro. Then you had, Venezuelans. And not just Venezuelans, but people from Nicaragua and other countries, people that had fled dictatorial regimes. And it was so interesting, and there's video of this, the back and forth and the dismay and anger of the Venezuelans and South Americans at these idiot, mostly white Democrats that are supportive of Maduro. And a lot of the Venezuelans calling them out. You're not Venezuelans. You're paid. You don't even speak Spanish. One of the Venezuelans was yelling at the protesters. It's just the level of arrogance and disconnect from humanity. The people on the left will sit there and openly support someone in front of that someone's victims. And we're not talking about a loved one. It's one thing like your husband, your wife, your father's on trial because they murdered a bunch of people and you go to court to support, it's your father, your mother. But that's not what this is. This would be like a rape trial and just, Democrat activists up and deciding with no connection to the rapist to go and protest against the rapist being put on trial in the face of the victims, the rape victims. That's what they are doing. I want to play some audio coming up. One of the bits of audio, we've got two. One is a woman in Arkansas, the ABC affiliate down in Little Rock, interviewed an Arkansas resident who's from Venezuela, in which she talked about these Democrat activists that are protesting in favor of Maduro. And I also want to play, and these two things actually have a connection. Ana Navarro on The View, as her fellow panelists were dogging on Trump for actually following through with the arrest. Again, it's not like he up and decided, hey, let's arrest Maduro. This was an indictment. This is something that the Biden administration was like, well, we got to arrest this guy. They never actually did it. Trump did it. And Ana Navarro pushing back. See, the thing about Ana Navarro that in all likelihood, even her fellow panelists on The View did not know, is that her father was from Nicaragua. Her family fled Nicaragua. And her father actually went back to fight with the Contras against the Sandinistas. She was on this side that Reagan was on the side of. Or her father fought on the same side that Reagan was supportive of. So as you can imagine, she had just a little different perspective as somebody who actually has a real, true connection to what this sort of corruption looks like. All that coming up next. All right, before traffic, the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line. Morning, Nick and Sarah. Remember Moscow on the Hudson? Robin Williams' character meltdown in the coffee aisle. I know of the movie, but I have never seen it. I will tell you this. I know I've spoken of it before. Many of you know that I spent an itty-bitty bit of time in Ukraine. 2012. It was before Putin invaded the Crimean Peninsula during the Obama administration. And maybe 6 months later, maybe I don't know, maybe a year later, some of the folks that I had met with and worked with over there were given permission to come here. And incidentally, you know, we have this idea that Ukraine, after the fall of the Soviet Union, became this free, liberated country. That is not the case at all. In fact, part of the reason I was there was to work with a media organization that was constantly being suppressed by the government. I saw it firsthand. I mean, we had a roundtable discussion with other journalists, and by the time we got back to the home base, if you will, the local government had already called telling them what they could and could not broadcast. In fact, they laughed. Their Independence Day was occurring while I was there, and they laughed about having a so-called Independence Day. And anyway, point being is, so when they came, one of the things this was pre-Zelensky. they had to leave a family member behind for fears that they would defect. So the Ukrainian government would not let people leave the country without leaving somebody in the family behind. It helped assure you would not just defect and not come back. But regarding the reference to the grocery stores, in the I think 14 days or so they were allowed to be here, and maybe day 2, day 3, just so they could pick up some things, I took them to Walmart. I was like to never get them out of there. Hours. And they didn't see a tenth of it. Just amazed they were at the vast amount of options. One of them bought armfuls of celery because that was a delicacy in Ukraine, and it was so expensive there. Well, here, it's not. And this is part of when you see some of these people on the left, and they act as if, and like Mamdani and these others, oh, how horrible it is, and capitalism is awful. These people they are the most ignorant human beings to walk the planet. Update on the traffic.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks' first meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 65. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 36. For your Wednesday, mostly sunny with a high near 65. And taking a look at Thursday, we'll see a 90% chance of showers with a high near 64.
Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty, says Christopher, we highly recommend Emily House Theory Realty for any of your home buying or selling needs. She and her team did a fantastic job helping us relocate from the West Coast to find our new home in Branson. With relocating, taking on a new position, plus a crazy schedule, my wife being on the West Coast, coming out for quick in and out trips, adding very specific must-haves for our new home, Emily made the whole process extremely easy and even a pleasure. Thank you for everything you did. We are very happy in our new home. Listen, there's tons and tons of realtors out there. This is something Emily's talked about. It's like $500 to get your license. You take some tests. And while I'm sure, it's probably not the easiest thing in the world, I don't want to downplay it. It is the sort of thing that anybody that wants to do it pretty much can. Tim Waltz might have a hard time, but other than that, it's something that most people are able to do. And so that means that you have a lot of people. Some do it part-time, little walking around money. Some that might do it full-time, but their primary focus is making, videos they hope go viral in order to get a lot of attention and drum up business that way. Emily Johnson just believes in being dedicated, doing 120+% job for you, and being extremely knowledgeable about the marketplace. And she's just a really good, honest person as well. All your home buying needs, your home selling needs, Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. I want to play 2 bits of audio for you. One of them is from The View. Now, this is in the context of Maduro. And they are all sitting around bitching about Donald Trump following through with arresting Maduro, something that the Biden administration talked about, even offered a $25,000 bounty because, we can't do it. We don't know how, but we'll pay someone else to do it. And as usual with people in government, particularly Democrats, it's virtue signaling, it's all talk. Donald Trump actually did what Biden talked about doing. And because Donald Trump did it, it is a bad thing. And Maduro is just a leader, and all of the criticism that follows. Now, on The View, one of the panelists is, if you aren't familiar with The View, Ana Navarro. And Ana Navarro was born in Nicaragua. And her, in fact, she had family that was in government at one point when maybe even before she was born. But she and her family would move to the States in the 80s because of political turmoil. But her father, who had been persecuted as an opponent of the regime, stayed behind to continue the fight with the Contras against the Sandinistas. And she would later say that Ronald Reagan's support of the Contras made her a lifelong Republican. Now, since then, of course, she spoke at the DNC for Kamala Harris. She's, a left-winger. However, the point being is, Navarro, to a degree, has actual real-life experience, particularly her own family. Her father, real-life experience under dictatorships. So as much as she may hate Donald Trump, there's a reality that comes into play here. And she interjects as they sit around criticizing Donald Trump's arrest of Maduro.
Your question, who voted for this? The people in South Florida, the Venezuelan community, the Cuban American community, the Nicaraguan American community voted for this. And for us, this is a very, very happy day when we see a dictator who has been part of oppressing and abusing the Venezuelan people for 25 years, when we see him in handcuffs and held to some sort of accountability. It brought me into tears. It brought me great joy. And, I live in South Florida.
But are you okay with the way that it was done?
But you can, I think both things can be true.
Okay.
I think you can criticize and ask questions and have concerns about the way it was done and what this means in the future.
Right.
And I think you can still celebrate that this murderous, corrupt, sadistic son of a bitch is out of Venezuela.
Yeah.
I think there's 8 million Venezuelan exiles all over the world. People have fled from this man's tyrannical rule.
Now, by the way, the way that the left deals with being confronted with this reality is like, yeah. Okay, well, let's go back and talk about Donald Trump and how bad he is. And you could even hear that they're not absorbing this. There's no intellectual absorption. There's no interest in actually learning. It's like, oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, but didn't he do it wrong? Let's instead focus on the fact that we think Donald Trump did it wrong. That's what's really important here. What is actually on display here is the revelation, though it's not a revelation to many of you, that the Democrats have so watered down what a dictator is by referring to Donald Trump as a dictator. People in this country have no idea what a dictator is. Democrats have conditioned people on the left to believe a dictator is someone you don't like. Someone who has policies you don't care for. Someone who puts out tweets that hurt your feelings. They have watered down the term Nazi. They have watered down the term fascist. And what is occurring here is after years of convincing people that what a dictator is Donald Trump, there is this clash between those people, and now that this Maduro thing is occurring, people in this country who actually have lived under true dictatorships. And they have taken to using their voices to inform all of these people, particularly in the media and on the left, that you have no clue what you are talking about when you talk about dictators. You have no concept. The left complaining about, all these no kings, no dictators. You people on the left in this country that think Donald Trump is a dictator, you are like a multi-billionaire griping to a homeless person that you don't have enough walking around money. You're like some 1,200-pound homebound fatty complaining to somebody who's in the hospital because they're malnourished that you don't have enough cheeseburgers. You have no idea how depraved you are and inhumane you are in a world in which real dictators exist, and many people here in this country fled. Many people in this country have lost their family members who, by the way, actually truly disappeared. Not because they were in the country illegally and shipped back to their home country, but because, they spoke out against leadership and were never seen again. And you have the audacity to portray what you deal with here in the United States as being the victim of a dictatorship, you really should genuinely, truly be ashamed of yourself. I'm going to get a traffic update. And in this same vein, I want to play for you audio that is from an Arkansas resident from Venezuela. She was on KATV Channel 7. This is Little Rock, Arkansas. And, she's obviously not a celebrity like Ana Navarra, but she is, and I'm telling you, if you're not, it probably depends on the sort of, different videos you watch and the algorithms and everything. But there are so many of these just average people that are out there. And this is all in response to what they see from the left that have been portraying Trump as a dictator while defending Maduro. And they are really on a truly grassroots level trying to inform the ignorant amongst us as to what the reality is. All right, so somebody had texted in on the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line that they saw Ozarks First did an interview with locally somebody, I think, from Venezuela, and that they're like, this should go viral. There are so many of these this should go viral videos. And it's because there are millions of these people who have had the shared human experience of living under a true dictatorship. And I'm telling you, the reason that they are speaking out is in response to the Democrat activists and the Democrat politicians and the media it's a combination of downplaying Maduro, downplaying his arrest as simply some sort of oil grab or, whatever it may be. A combination of that and claiming that Donald Trump is an example of a dictator. Out of Little Rock, Arkansas, the ABC affiliate KATV Channel 7, speaking with an Arkansas resident from Venezuela.
Whatever situation you have ever lived in the United States will never ever compare to the famine, persecution, and destruction that we have endured to 26 years. I had friends that took whatever somebody threw on the trash and tried to eat the leftovers. We see it as salvation, honestly. That's the way we see it. We see it as the opportunity to hug our family again. Because, I'm sorry. We fought way too hard. And we were either killed, run over by their tanks, taken to prison and disappeared. People that I studied with, they just disappeared. They just took them away. They vanished them. And I think it's terribly disrespectful for anybody to tell a Venezuelan how we should react to that. I think it's terribly disrespectful to the people that have died, saying that Maduro shouldn't be where he is. And there will be a day that as a family I'm going to go and hug them all again. We're going to say that we make it. And that's because real men in uniform went and took that man away. And that is the truth.
Now, she's one of countless voices that have felt compelled to educate because of what has become the unrecognizable, be it ignorance or deliberate dishonesty, of people on the left in this country about what is going on and who these people are. And I would like to think, the left in this country referring to Trump as a dictator and Hitler, the fact that it has gotten him almost killed on a number of occasions, that hasn't been enough to stop them. In fact, that caused them to dial it up. But if you had any scrap of humanity, and you recognize what people who are truly under dictatorships have gone through, have seen their friends run over by tanks, murdered because they spoke out, the irony of these no kings, anti-dictator people out there protesting against Trump, you would be murdered if Trump were a dictator. She talked about having her friends disappear. The audacity of Democrats in this country to use that terminology for illegals in this country, many of whom are rapists and child molesters, that don't get disappeared. They get arrested. They go through the system. They go where everybody acknowledges where they go, which is back to their home country. To use the term disappeared whenever right here in our own country, we have people who have fled tyrannical regimes because their friends and family members have truly disappeared for speaking out. Not arrested and booked and put in jail somewhere where they are afforded an attorney, but just one day they're gone, no one knows where they are, and they never see or hear from them again. It is vile, it is immoral, and it is absent of any humanity for some of these people to lecture victims of true dictatorships about how they should be against Donald Trump and to and to portray themselves as victims of a dictatorship under Trump. Have you no shame? I think we know the answer to that. You have no credibility. You have no clue. And you have no humanity. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Pinnacle Honda, South Campbell, just south of Walnut Lawn, and kicking off the new year, all sorts of incredible deals, be it a pre-owned Honda or maybe taking advantage of some of the incredible deals on the newer stuff. They're going to be taking care of you, and they have that Pinnacle Advantage, which is great. Advantages in terms of routine maintenance being done on your vehicle when you do buy it from Pinnacle Honda. That is an added perk for you as well. And I've noted, just from a tax perspective, I know this may seem like a little thing to a lot of people. I sometimes get excited over little things, but whenever you got to do your little reporting to the government what personal property you own so that they can charge you for owning it at the end of the year. But when you do that, I think it's usually March. It's what property did you own on January 1st, and that's what you will pay the taxes on at the end of the year. So if you purchase a vehicle on the 2nd or today, then you're not going to have to pay personal property taxes on it at the end of this year. And I just always feel like the earlier part of the year, I just feel like I'm just getting away with something a little bit there in a good, positive, moral way. That's just another added bonus of purchasing a vehicle from Pinnacle Honda early on in the year. South Campbell, just south of Walnut Lawn. You can also find any of their info under Nick's endorsements at ksgf.com. It was referencing the clashing of realities between people who have lived under real dictatorships like Maduro versus Democrats who claim that they live under a dictatorship with Donald Trump. And that the clashing of those two realities show that Democrats really have no concept of what a true dictatorship is and just how inhumane they really are to use that terminology when there are true victims in this very country who have fled countries like Venezuela, who are true victims of actual dictatorships. And I was referencing earlier the time that I hosted some of the good friends I made in the time that I spent in Ukraine. And it was during the period of time that you had all these, was it Occupy Wall Street? And you had all these lefties that were camping outside of federal buildings. And we took a day trip to Kansas City, and we drove by the federal building there and the Treasury, I think it was. And there were, hundreds of these left-wing white kids all camping out there, and they had asked what it was, so I explained to them. And so they're like, do you think we can go there? And I said, yeah, I'll take you over there. And they were worried, like, well, will it be in danger? I was like, no, it'll be fine. And so we go over and kind of wander around, and, they interacted and talked with them. And so, but the thing was, these kids, they were sitting around complaining about income inequality, and they're on their iPhones. They have food everywhere. I mean, they're just having a good time, and they're explaining to these people from the impoverished portion of Ukraine about how horrible they have it and how it is that they are protesting against income inequality. And when we were back in there were like 8 of us, big SUV driving back, I mean, it was silence. And finally, one of the gals said out loud, just in the air, it floated there, if they knew what it was like and lived like for a year like we do, they would not be complaining. And it just always really, that stuck with me. News in 60 seconds.
Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has not led to regime change in the South American country. Maduro's vice president, Delcy Rodriguez, is now interim president.
Rodriguez was part of a group of senior officials in Maduro's administration that now appears to control Venezuela and had previously overseen much of Venezuela's oil-dependent economy and its intelligence service.
Correspondent Luke Garrett. Maduro and his wife, detained in New York, have pleaded not guilty to a host of charges, including narco-terrorism, conspiracy, and weapons-related charges. Cross-country demonstrations continue claiming lives in Iran. People are taking to the streets over the country's crumbling economy.
The US-based human rights activist news agency estimates the death toll in violence surrounding protests in Iran has risen to at least 35. The agency adds more than 1,200 people have been detained in the protests, which have been ongoing for more than a week. It's clarified that 29 protesters, 4 children and 2 members of Iran's security forces have been killed. The group, which relies on a network inside of Iran for its reporting, has been accurate in past unrests. The semi-official Fars news agency, believed close to Iran's paramilitary Revolutionary Guard, says some 250 police officers and over 40 members of the Guard's volunteer group have been hurt. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
The Department of Health and Human Services is out with revised guidelines on childhood vaccinations. Hepatitis and meningitis, RSV, and flu shots no longer recommended for every child. The U.S. recommendations are now more in line with what vaccines are recommended for European youngsters. On Wall Street, the Dow futures down 50 points, NASDAQ futures up 30. More on these stories at townhall.com.
They say timing is everything in the gold and silver markets, and it's true. Dennis Prager here for AmFed Coin and Bullion. Although you can buy at the right time, if you buy the wrong coins, you may not make a profit. When gold was $400 an ounce, many people were talked into buying high-grade old gold and silver collector's coins. Unfortunately, most of the people who bought these so-called semi-numismatic coins, like the $20 St. Gaudens and Liberty Head gold coins, have not broken even on their investment. Incredible, given that gold has risen approximately 525% since then. So while timing is everything, if you buy the wrong coins, the timing simply doesn't matter. Having a dealer who cares about positioning you in the right types of coins or bullion will mean more to your portfolio than anything else. That's why I deal with Nick Rovich and AmFed Coin and Bullion. Whether you're buying or selling, call 800-221-7694. That's 800-221-7694. Or go to AmericanFederal.com. AmericanFederal.com.
The French president is
I want a great homeloan.com. Getting into the new year, it's for a lot of people a time of making big decisions, got the holidays out of the way. But maybe you're still waiting for those interest rates to come down. You keep hearing that this is the year things are really going to be kicking in. I recommend you don't wait to get all the information possible and even get the process started. It's one of the great things about the characters in their team. So let me tell you what would happen at your traditional place that you may get your loan. And that is you call them and you're like, hey, I'm not ready to pull the trigger now. I want to wait until interest rates hit a certain point, but I'd like for you to go ahead and spend your time and effort preparing everything and gathering what documents are needed and having it all ready for me. That way, once the time comes that I'm ready, then I can go ahead and pull the trigger on that. And they would tell you that's not how that works. When you're ready, come see us. But the characters don't operate that way. In fact, they encourage you to do that work or allow them to do that work with you ahead of time. So when the time does come, you are ready to go, whenever that may be. You may 2 weeks from now decide, yep, let's do it, or it may be 6 months from now. You don't have to wait. You can get all of the unfun stuff taken care of early, or at least have the discussion about what that looks like. So then when you are ready to do it, you're ready to go. Whether that's refinancing, first time, third time, 80th time home loan. And don't forget, if you've heard about the reverse mortgage situation, but you aren't necessarily sure if that applies to you, you can inquire about that as well. For all of your home loan needs, the characters of their team, I want a greathomeloan.com, because you do. I find this story to be somewhat entertaining, and I don't really know why. Sometimes things are entertaining just because they are. A Maine-based apparel company's phone has been ringing off the hook after a shackled Nicolas Maduro was snapped wearing one of its hoodies when he was hauled to the Big Apple, the company says. The ousted Venezuelan dictator wore the Origin attire in the company's patriotic blue shade in a now infamous photo of the dictator flashing 2 thumbs up while surrounded by scores of DEA agents after touching down in New York. It wasn't clear how the dictator ended up in the hoodie. The founder of Origin, Peter Roberts, said, quote, probably a DEA agent slipped the hoodie on him and said, you're going to feel the fabric of freedom on American soil. That's my assumption. I'm taking the liberty to assume, he said in a video. He went on and said he definitely gave 2 thumbs up, so I think he liked the fabric. What I believe happened is that they landed in New York. It was cold outside, and they probably just put the hoodie on him. The CEO said his phone immediately blew up when people started noticing the company's logo. The company, which makes and sells a slew of apparel, training gear, and boots, immediately seized on the free worldwide publicity. Quote, welcome to America. Unfortunately, our Patriot Blue RTX hoodie won't be shipping till spring, but they are available for pre-order, the business wrote on Instagram alongside a photo of Maduro in custody. So, hey, it sounds like he's some somewhat patriotic guy.
I like that. What did he say? The wave of freedom?
Yeah, let's see. What was the quote again? Let me find it here. Probably a DEA agent slipped the hoodie on him and said, you're going to feel the fabric of freedom on American soil. That's my assumption.
He needs that as a quote on the back of that.
Yeah, he could have a whole custom line with that printed on it or stitched real nicely somewhere, maybe on the sleeve. I think it's a good idea. Here's part of what I find entertaining about trying to even figure out why. You know what I mean? I guess it's a historic moment in which we saw the might and power of what it is the United States can do under the proper leadership. And so there's the symbol of that, I suppose, almost a pride factor, a patriotism factor. Can you imagine that you're just the CEO of a company? And if it is played out the way, they just happen to have this hoodie there to put over the guy or whatever, and all of a sudden this huge international incident is occurring, and on the dictator they put one of your company's products, and all of a sudden everybody, I mean, you're like, of all of the brainstorming sessions we sat around trying to figure out what marketing to do,
Right.
and then that gets dropped in your lap. I think it's great. There's been obviously a tremendous divide between the left and the right in this country, and between people who have lived under true dictatorships versus Democrat activists when it comes to this particular issue. There has been one Democrat, though, in particular, who right out of the gate was very vocal in support of the arrest of Maduro. Not talking about Fetterman, but none other than Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Now, you may recall, she's the former head of the DNC and kind of a nasty lady. The reason that she has been fully supportive of this arrest is because she has a disproportionately high number of Venezuelan refugees in her district down in Florida. What does that tell you? The Democrats, they know the side of good versus evil. They know he's a horrific dictator that, again, the Biden administration put a bounty on the guy's head to have him arrested and brought here to the United States of America. It's just Trump's position was, we don't need to farm out our law enforcement. We don't need to pay whatever random person to do for us what we can do. I mean, frankly, you think about the way that made the United States look, that the president of the United States during the Biden administration puts out a bounty on someone because we're just not capable of doing it ourselves. We have to, as the most powerful country on the planet, offer $25 million to whatever random person could do the job for us. Trump's position was, no, we can do it, thanks. And Trump's the bad guy in this? Because he's doing what Democrats pretended they wanted to have done? And here, Debbie Wasserman Schultz actually has a disproportionately high number of Venezuelans in her district, so of course she's, well, no, I'm completely for this. These people are so transparently trash. She must have gotten some flack for not coming out against it, because that seemed as if she was paying compliment to Donald Trump and his policies and his actions, because within 24 hours she went on to say, oh, but he's made it worse because he allowed Maduro's vice president to currently be in charge instead of fully taking over the whole country and replacing everyone. So this is the narrative coming from the Democrat Party. On one hand, Donald Trump committed an illegal act by executing the acquisition of someone that was under indictment in this country. But on the other hand, you have Debbie Wasserman Schultz in the Democrat Party claiming that Donald Trump did wrong because he didn't replace the entire government. He didn't do a full-blown, top-down, remove absolutely everyone and hand-pick new people to lead. These people have zero moral compass. There is no right or wrong to these people. Meanwhile, Senator Chris Van Hollen, Democrat Maryland, was confronted yesterday on a report citing anonymous Democrat lawmakers who took issue with the party's lack of nuance with regard to Trump's strike against Venezuela and the capturing of the dictator. One House Democrat complained in comments to Axios on Monday that nuance is dead in politics. Well, with the Democrats in particular, of course it is. There is no nuance. Nuance, that term gets thrown around a lot. It means sort of like the depth and details. Like it's the opposite of Trump is bad and everything opposite of Trump is good. That is the opposite of nuance. And Democrats have killed it off because it does not matter what Trump does. It is bad. Whatever he does is bad. The lawmaker anonymously told Axios, Maduro is bad, glad he's gone. You can't have it both ways, complaining the Democrat base holds the belief that everything Trump touches is bad. Another telling the outlet, I wish the Democratic Party would be a little more measured on this. CNN's John Berman asked Van Hollen, what do you think of this criticism apparently coming from a Democrat? To which Van Hollen said, well, I wish they would come out on the record. We could have a healthy debate. No, you can't. What does it tell you? That the few elected Democrats, again, other than Debbie Wasserman Schultz, because she's forgiven by Democrats because of the Venezuelan constituency she has, but Democrats just from a political perspective that believe Democrats need to cut this Donald Trump is bad on everything crap out and be more nuanced and intellectual about this stuff. What does it tell you that they feel that they can't even publicly come out and say that? Even reasonable Democrats, well, it shouldn't say even, the reasonable Democrats within the party recognize that you cannot have any sort of intellectual discussion. You cannot have diversity of thought because you will be destroyed. And the fact that you have elected Democrats, many of which are probably in a safe district, won't even go on the record, not even to support Trump, but just to say, you know what, maybe we ought to be a little more measured in this, tells you how extreme the Democrat Party has become. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 65. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 36. For your Wednesday, mostly sunny with a high near 65. And taking a look at Thursday, we'll see a 90% chance of showers with a high near 64.
Want to hear a hilarious example of left-wing media running propaganda for dictatorships?
Oh, yes, I would love to.
So there is some left-wing chick that was at a pro-dictator rally for Maduro, and she was blocking an intersection. You know how they like to do that. And so she was told by law enforcement to stop blocking the intersection, and she refused to. So they, I don't know that they actually, they detained her and put her in the car, drove her down the road, and let her go. Here's the headline from the Daily Beast. Trump critic 22 arrested on camera after speaking out against Maduro capture. A preschool teacher was arrested on camera after she finished a TV interview about Donald Trump's raid on Venezuela to seize Maduro, fueling the debate over protest, policing, and free speech. So I get, law enforcement are like, no, there were like 200 people there. She refused to get out of blocking traffic. So we put her in the cop car, we drove her down the road, searched her, and let her go. But, of course, this is propaganda for dictatorships. And the danger of not being nuanced, if you will, is you end up on the side of really bad people. This is how the Democrat Party has become so extreme. Because as in the Axios piece, a number of elected Democrats complaining that their party has lost all nuance, is you have to be against Donald Trump. So if a bad person is on the opposite side of Donald Trump, because there is no nuance, you have to be on that person's side, and you end up defending that person. And that's what the Democrat Party has become. This is how they end up defending terrorists. They end up defending Hamas. They end up defending dictators like Maduro. Because it is Donald Trump did it, so it must be bad, and whomever he did it to is a victim. And your party becomes extreme because you assimilate your followers into siding with really bad people. That's how it is that you end up with followers that try to assassinate your political opposition. Shifting gears. There is a public listening session tonight, 5:30 to 7 p.m., regarding the Springfield's Convention Center plans. It is going to be at the Greene County Election Center. This is 1126 North Boonville Avenue. This is the convention center. There was a request by the city to add more taxes in the city of Springfield for the purposes of raising money to build a convention center. And by a decent margin, the people of Springfield said, no, we don't want to do that. And this apparently caught the city off guard. Surprised me simply because any time Springfield is asked to raise taxes, Springfield raises taxes. And so this was a rare instance in which the answer was no. And then the city embarked on putting out surveys, and it somewhat was masquerading as, well, we're just, out of touch with what's important to you. Particularly when it comes to, randomly a convention center. So we're going to survey you. But it asks questions in a manner that clearly demonstrated they were just doing market research so as to know how to better pitch it to you next time. Which I think that's a little unethical. It's one thing if you're going to use tax dollars and taxpayer resources because you have a revelation that, man, we really don't know what's going on with our citizens. We are way off the ball here. We're not in tune. So it would be a wise use of taxpayer resources for us to better learn what is important so that we can be a better representation. But that's not really what was going on here. Instead, what was being done is we're going to take taxpayer dollars from taxpayers who told us they don't want this, and we're going to figure out how it is that we can remarket it to convince them to give it to us anyway. So the survey, which was online, and we talked about it because some of the they were, if I remember right, we read some of the questions. They were pretty leading, weren't they? On that, that they posted,
Oh,
because
yeah.
remember they printed them off. I mean,
Yeah.
it was just very obvious what was going on.
How can we get you to do this? How can we get you to support this?
It was like, what would make you want to support a convention center? What would you think is awesome? And I suspect that whatever those answers are, that will be what is used to market it. Like, look at all these wonderful things. It's pretty transparent. Now, this is the news leader, and they note that it's the city manager, David Cameron, who's the new city manager. He was the city manager in Republic. He is going to be holding the listening sessions. The feedback gathering and listening sessions come on the heels of the failed increase to the increased tax on the November ballot. Cameron saying, quote, "I just want to listen. I know that people have opinions on this and other priorities for the city, and I want to hear what they have to say, good, bad, or otherwise. Whether you supported, opposed, or didn't vote on the convention and event center proposal, your perspective is important and will help us determine the next steps, if any." So I would recommend, and maybe you do want one, and you have some ideas about ways the city could go about it differently, or you don't. David Cameron, the city manager, is saying, "Hey, I do want to hear from everyone on this," and I don't know David Cameron's, or I shouldn't. I don't know anyone's perspective on this, but based off of historical behavior, you can oftentimes get a good idea. And I don't know that it's fair to assign to David Cameron any sort of that, like, well, we know he really does want to push this. That's his goal. He may genuinely, truly be wanting to gather the information and may go back to the city leaders and say, listen, the people just don't want this. I don't recommend we go forward with it. But when it comes to the standard players, the people who have long run the city, all of this is part of an effort to figure out how to remarket it to you so that you will give them what they want. That listening session, again, is going to be 5:30 to 7 tonight at the Greene County Election Center, 1126 North Boonville. So if you want to go, check it out, listen, participate. You have the opportunity to do so. We're going to hit that traffic here, just a couple of minutes delayed. But first, the wreath cleanup.
Oh, yes, that is going to take place this Saturday. Veterans in Defense of Liberty, they do that Wreaths for Warriors or Wreaths Across America. I can't remember which one, but they lay wreaths on veterans' graves at the Springfield National Cemetery, and they need help. So if you would like to volunteer, it's this Saturday. Volunteers are going to meet up at the cemetery around 11 a.m., and once again, that is at the Springfield National Cemetery, and that's all the details that I have. Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozark's first meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 65. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 36. For your Wednesday, mostly sunny with a high near 65. And taking a look at Thursday, we'll see a 90% chance of showers with a high near 64.
Hilton Hotels started to find itself in hot water, and they, well, I think very quickly nipped it in the bud. Though I did see one headline saying Hilton finally addresses, but I thought, well, no, I think they moved pretty quickly on this. So anyway, what happened was, apparently there was, in the Minneapolis area, some Hilton hotels that were independently owned. So they weren't owned by Hilton, but you got the franchise situation going on. And there were a number of people within the Department of Homeland Security and U.S. Immigration, Customs Enforcement that had booked hotel rooms there. And they began receiving emails back telling them, we're canceling your reservations, and tell all of your friends in Homeland Security and else, we are not going to allow anyone to stay here that has anything to do with immigration enforcement. And this became public because members of HHS and others who had received these emails from the company canceling their reservations put them online so that everyone could see them. And as you can, so you know, of course, then what happens. And Hilton, now I first saw the story yesterday, And by mid-afternoon, Hilton was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Yeah, no, this ain't right. We're looking into it. And then I think it was by yesterday evening, they're like, hey, just so you know, we have remedied this problem. These are not ours directly. These are independent owners, but we have let them know that is discrimination is not allowed at any of our hotels. And Fox Business has this story on it. The Hilton Hotel said it's investigating the independently owned Minneapolis area property after the Department of Homeland Security alleged law enforcement officers were refused service, a dispute that has renewed scrutiny over the company's longstanding opposition to immigration-related activities at the hotels. A spokesperson for Hilton told Fox Business the company is investigating that they serve as welcoming places for all the hotels independently owned and operated, and the actions referenced are not reflective of Hilton values. We are investigating this matter with the individual hotel and can confirm that Hilton works with governments, law enforcement, community leaders around the world to ensure our properties are open and inviting to everyone. Now, a spokesperson from Hilton would, subsequent to that statement, reach back out to Fox Business to say, quote, we have been in direct contact with that hotel, and they have apologized for the action of their team, which was not in keeping with their policies. They have taken immediate action to resolve the matter. Hilton's position is clear. Our properties are open to everyone, and we do not tolerate any form of discrimination. Now, some people will argue that, they're only doing this to prevent some sort of massive backlash. I think at times you have to make a judgment call, and you have to recognize you don't really know for sure. This isn't a situation where this kept brewing and brewing and brewing, and it wasn't making the headlines, and Hilton was trying to walk a fine line as a corporation and finally said, well, okay, we'll start allowing that. They acted very, very quickly on this. Now, again, someone can argue they acted quickly because they knew what was to come. But the fact that they moved so quickly, in my opinion, on this and so immediately said, first off, this is not our policy. This is an independently owned hotel with our label, and we have told them that ain't the way things work, and they have corrected the issue. To me, I think I don't know that one should assign blame to Hilton as a corporation. And if you do, here's my other thought on something like this. Because I know some people will say, no, they're just trying to save themselves. If the backlash is something that can never be resolved, or if a company makes a misstep and the backlash is something that is unforgiving, in other words, no, it doesn't matter that you corrected it as quickly as possible. You should have never let this happen in the first place. It kind of sends the message there's no point in trying to fix it because you will be punished anyway. And I don't know that that's necessarily beneficial. But by the way, I don't think that most people probably won't even know that this necessarily happened because they did handle it as quickly as they did. But I know, I recognize oftentimes there's very little room for forgiveness when it comes to businesses and organizations that discriminate against conservatives and against law enforcement and against military. And I don't blame people for lacking forgiveness in that area because, when you've been pummeled over and over again in a culture and you've been debanked and you've had to deal with all of these different things, you at some point you're like, what, I'm not putting up with it anymore. But I do think that there is a danger in also at the same time sending the message that even if you fix it, we're still coming after you, because then what's the incentive to fix it? Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. The Pyramid Roofing Company. It's winter. Doesn't feel like it, but it is. And
That's not how you said you were going to do this.
Oh, yeah.
Earlier.
You need a roof? The Pyramid Roofing Company. The end.
No, that wasn't it either.
What was it? What did I say?
What rhymes with roof?
Oh, yeah. What rhymes with roof? The Pyramid Roofing Company. But yeah, it is winter. It doesn't feel like it. And if you are putting off roof repairs until the spring or summer, you don't have to wait with the Pyramid team. They work year-round. They use high-quality materials, and they'll shoot you straight. Plus, they work with you through that insurance process without making you sign anything, which is great. And they offer discounts on new roof installs for our military and first responders, which is an added perk if you pick the Pyramid Roofing Company. And if your New Year goal is to start a new job, start a new adventure, the Pyramid team, well, they can help you out with that too because they are hiring right now. Just all-around wins with the Pyramid Roofing Company. If it's time to have the Pyramid team out to your home, reach out to Josh today. You can find all of their contact information under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
Regarding the Hilton story, a text on the Pyramid Roofing Company talking text line. Last night I saw an extra reporter went undercover in that same hotel, and the manager told the guy working at the desk to continue with not allowing ICE agents to come there. Yeah, I haven't seen that. I don't know. But I'll tell you this. When it comes to a situation in which you have employees do something that which usually is discriminating against a Trump supporter or a Republican or law enforcement, and it gets exposed, and then the company's like, well, we corrected this, we did it. I think what oftentimes happens is you have the employer tell the employee, hey, you can't do that, instead of firing them. And I listen, everyone's different. You can run a business however you want to. But if I am over people that make that sort of poor judgment, I fire them, not because, well, you shouldn't be mean to this group or that group, but because you execute such poor judgment. You don't have the foresight to recognize what sort of incredibly damaging coverage that can cause. That if I have somebody that, and I'm in charge of a revenue generating business, and I have an employee that doesn't recognize that doing whatever move they may make can completely destroy a business, which means people losing their jobs, I want them out that day, that minute. Not because of the content of what they did, but the inability to recognize the recklessness of it or the lack of any sort of caring about all of the other people that have jobs and rely on that job for an income. These people that will put companies in danger as employees, and I know sometimes, hey, it's the company owners, small businesses, sometimes it's, they do it to themselves. But I'm talking about these instances in which you have employees that just feel entitled to be reckless in terms of discriminating against certain people working for a company, and they have no compassion or care for the other people that may lose their jobs because of it. You cause enough damage, people start losing their jobs, moms, dads, people who rely on that income. And you get these people, and they're always on the left. They don't care about those people. Doesn't matter to them one bit. They arrested the guy that was hitting J.D. Vance's, knocking out windows at his Cincinnati home with a hammer. And he is a 26-year-old by the name of William DeFoor. Have you seen a photo of the guy?
Yes.
Yeah. Gee, do you think he's liberal? If he is of any political persuasion. Now, it sounds like he's kind of a nutcase. The problem is, not all nutcases are liberal, but most liberals are nutcases. So, sometimes it is one and the same. But, this guy, honestly, the information that's out there now, it could have been completely random. I don't know. What they said is this is a guy that, let's see, what is his past? He's been in trouble before. Okay, so court records show DeFore has faced multiple criminal cases in Hamilton County in recent years, with each proceeding intersecting with findings related to his mental competency. He was charged in April of 23 with trespassing at the University of Cincinnati Health Psychiatric Emergency Services after police said he refused to leave the premises, but the case was later dismissed after he was ruled incompetent to stand trial. His legal issues continued in 2024 when he was charged with 2 counts of vandalism after windows at a Hyde Park business were broken, according to court records and reporting by the Cincinnati Enquirer, with the case referred to a mental health docket and treatment ordered in lieu of conviction. And in October of 2024, Hamilton County Court approved an application granting DeFore's mother legal guardianship, finding him incompetent by reason of mental illness. This is one of the problems that we have seen, and I forget, there was some other high-profile case. Was it the guy who murdered that Ukrainian refugee on the bus? But it was something similar to that, in which the guy constantly was getting out because he was too mentally incompetent. I don't think it was that case. But there was some case that you couldn't, in the state, whatever state laws the guy kept violating, he could not be tried for them because he was deemed incompetent and mentally incompetent. So here you have this dangerous guy just being let out over and over again, and I think he ended up killing someone. And you get these laws that are coming into play in some of these instances. Unfortunately, this is just, some 26-year-old that, who knew what his intent was, or even, again, if he even knew it was J.D. Vance's house. But here shows up, smashing out windows with a hammer, who has been in trouble with the law on numerous occasions. But they're like, oh, well, we can't try this guy because he's nuts, so go on your way. And then you know that somebody else is going to be a victim at some point. Some positive stats in terms of crime and victimhood. Car thefts have plummeted, and this is largely attributed to crackdown on illegal immigrants because of the massive number of vehicles that get stolen in this country as part of either international car theft rings, or I could tell you, had a conversation with someone who was closely associated with a car rental company, and one of the biggest problems that they have as car rental companies are vehicles that would get stolen and driven straight south of the border. And it's people who many times their families are essentially held hostage, and they're forced to go and take out a rental vehicle and then drive it back south of the border to give over to the drug cartels. And because I remember asking, I was like, how is it I was inquiring about why it was so much was needed in terms to rent a vehicle. And they talked about the theft and I think I asked, well, how is it that somebody more than once, you'd think once, there's only so many car thieves, right? And how is it that these car thieves, at least when it came to rental companies, they wouldn't carjack them. They would rent the car and then take it south of the border. And so I'm thinking to myself, well, how does that happen more than once? And it would happen not because that individual would steal multiple cars or rent multiple cars and then drive them south of the border, but drug cartels would go to even some random person's home may even be here in the United States, basically go into the home, hold the family captive, and tell the husband who has an okay driving record, hey, you go rent a car, bring it back here, and we'll let your family go, and then that's how they get the vehicles. But anyhow, point being is that because of illegal immigration, there is a significantly, or has been a significantly higher number of vehicle thefts in this country. Well, between January and October of 25, 324,000 cars were reported stolen. That was a 23.2% drop from the previous year. And while, again, several factors seem to have contributed to the drop, the first of which has been a series of federal and state efforts to prosecute migrants and international theft rings. And so it's just yet another real, true life, meaningful, positive impact that Donald Trump's policies regarding immigration have had on hardworking American citizens in this country. Hunter Hardscapes, an outdoor incredible company. It is top of the line. I don't really stress this a great deal because it really shouldn't be the main focus. But I do want to let you know that if you are looking to have that outdoor space built or do uplighting on your home or security, I say security light, to me it's one and the same. We've got uplighting on our home and it makes it so much more secure. You go through our neighborhood and house after, I can tell you our house is not going to have somebody prowling around it because of all the uplighting, while other houses are just completely dark. And so there's the security benefit of that, but just the outdoor living space, full blown, have an outdoor kitchen and entertainment center and water features, or something that is a bit more simplistic like we have with the a lot of square footage there and the smokeless fire pit. But if you're going to have Hunter Hardscapes and outdoor do it, you are going to have it done by the best. And so that does cost more. I think sometimes people underestimate what it costs to have true craftsmen that create lifetime structures. They underestimate the value of that. And I get it, because you sort of, in your mind, ballpark things. You're like, well, now I've been to the store and pavers are $1.84 a piece. And so it takes a couple days to do it. And then whenever a company that does premium work comes out and they give you an estimate, it's a little more than you expected. Heck, maybe even a lot more. But I'm telling you, you get what you pay for. And the amount of difference in quality of product itself, products that you can't buy yourself at the big box store. That's not where they're getting their product. And the craftsmanship and the time and effort that they put into it, it well exceeds what it is that you are going to be putting into it financially. And so, I want to stress that because, you may be sometimes think, well, gosh, that seems a little more expensive than if I hired this company, or you are getting the best. And they do have a cost estimation calculator that kind of give you a ballpark on their website as well. They're great folks. Can't recommend them enough. Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor. You can find them under Nick's endorsements at ksgf.com. Sarah was just informing me that her show, 1 year anniversary coming up this Saturday.
This Saturday.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do myself a mediocre show, like always.
That's what you ought to do.
Mm-hmm.
You ought to do to
That's
celebrate. Just mail it in. Well, here's a story that I will gift to you for your show Saturday.
Thank you.
New York Post. Trans gym goer caught masturbating in woman's bathroom at California Planet Fitness. Well, now, let's not be so judgmental.
Yeah, don't nitpick.
Disturbing viral video shows the moment a transgender gym goer appears to be masturbating in a stall inside the women's bathroom at a Planet Fitness in California. And now, let me tell you, so of course it's a gross story. And people are going to say, well, that doesn't mean all transgenders. But let me tell you here, the part about this that really jumped out to me. The woman who was victim of it kind of, like went and told the front desk, and they're like, well, we don't know what to do, and her boyfriend ended up stepping in. Addressing the saga, she said she now regrets not doing more at the time, saying, quote, I was really uncomfortable, and honestly, I kind of just wanted to say my piece and get out of there. Looking back, I do have regrets. I should have done more. I should have called the cops. I thought about it, but people were just going to accuse me of being transphobic. Now, this is the environment the left has created for women in this country today. Here is a woman horrified by a man committing a sexual act in a woman's restroom, but she was too afraid to speak up because the left would attack her for being transphobic. Glenn Beck's coming up next. I will talk with you tomorrow. I'm Nick Reed.